So yesterday, what did we read? A bunch of the reigns in Israel, predominantly Israel, some in Judah. We saw that Israel had fallen back into paganism. I think Judah fell back into paganism as well. They were doing good for a while. Yeah, King Ahaz went back to, you know, I don't know, man. The children of Israel I guess not necessarily just the children of Israel anymore. Well, children of Israel, if you want to take it as in the descendants of Jacob. But, the people God's chosen, the people of the promised land, they're having a hard time, really having a hard time. So let's jump into chapter 17. We're going to cover a little bit of the reigns in Israel, and it looks like we're going to move on from there. So hopefully things change. We'll find out, I guess. Hopefully they change for the better, but we'll see.
In the 12th year of Ahaz, king of Judah, Hoshea, the son of Elah, became king of Israel in Samaria, and he reigned 9 years. And he did...
Okay, I was just looking this up before we started. We talked about this earlier, but just for clarification, right now we have the kingdom of Judah, right? And the kingdom of Israel, also known as Samaria. Right? Samaria is within the kingdom of Israel. This is off the Wikipedia page. That's why I became the king of Israel in Samaria.
Evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel who were before him. Shalmaneser, king of Assyria.
Okay, so he did a different type of evil. He did evil in the sight of the Lord, but not as the kings of Israel who were before him. So he didn't worship Baal. He did some other stuff. Does his Bible? Let's just keep going and let's see if that
came
explains.
Up against him, and Hoshea became his vassal and paid him tribute money. And the king of Assyria uncovered a conspiracy by Hoshea, for he had sent messengers to So, king of Egypt, and brought no tribute to the king of Assyria, as he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison.
Well, but let me see. What is this? I mean, we don't have it in the text, so I doubt this commentary will have anything about it. But let's check and see. Nope, nothing. But it does talk about the conspiracy, so we can go into that. Hoshea became king in 732 BC, so the 12 years of Ahaz indicate a period of coregency with his father, Jotham. What's coregency? Coregency? Monarchical position, such as king, queen, emperor, or empress, held by two persons when normally held by only one. Interesting. So, Hoshea became king in 732, so the 12 years of Ahaz indicate a period of coregency of his father Jotham, perhaps arranged due to the pressure of Tiglath-Pileser's first western campaign. Hoshea, the name means salvation. Shalmaneser the fifth succeeded Tiglath-Pileser III as king of Assyria in 727 BC. The conspiracy by Hoshea. Several elements of intrigue and international affairs may have entered into the picture here. Transitions in power were often occasions for rebellion or attempted overthrow. Further, a new strong man had appeared in Egypt, Tefnech, a pharaoh of the 24th dynasty. The time may have seemed ripe for Hoshea to enter into the anti-Assyrian coalition. This is a lot of stuff. Like, how did they... Whoa. There's a lot. Like they had to, for he had sent messengers, so king of Egypt brought no tribute. But see, like figuring out the names and all that, right? That means they had to have, these commentaries had to have, calculated the timings of these kings, compared it to the timings of the kings and rulers in the surrounding territories, and come up with a cohesive timeline. And that makes sense. It makes sense. It's taking a whole lot of work, and that also makes sense why we were looking for a decent timeline earlier. It's hard. It's hard to find. So yeah, someone should come up with like a prop. That's why I keep saying I wish we had the chronicling of the book of Israel and the book of Judah, right? The that they keep referencing, because we need. I mean, I'm sure there's probably something out there. We just have to find it. It's just hard to find a chronicling of these events in an easy to access format, because there's a lot of different rulers, a lot of different names, a lot of power plays happening within these surrounding kingdoms, variables shifting and all that. So it's a lot to keep track of, just without having any reference. So yeah, having like a full on like a table or a chart or something that has the information to go, like, to reference would be really cool. I mean, I'm sure there is something. We just gotta take the time to look for it.
As he had done year by year. Therefore the king of Assyria shut him up and bound him in prison.
That king of Assyria is expecting something. You gotta give it to him.
Now the king of Assyria went throughout all the land, and went up to Samaria and besieged it for 3 years.
He's that upset.
In the 9th year of Hoshea, the king of Assyria took Samaria, and carried Israel away to Assyria, and placed them in Halah, and by the Habor, the river of Gozan.
Weren't Samaria, they were just besieged by Syria, right? Oh, man. Man, Israel's not having a good time.
And in the cities of the Medes. For so it was that the children of Israel had sinned against the Lord their God, who had brought them up out of the land of Egypt, from under the hand of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And they had feared other gods, and had walked in the statutes of the nations whom the Lord had cast out from before the children of Israel, and of the kings of Israel which they had made. Also, the children of Israel secretly did against the Lord their God things that were not right. And
Secretly?
they built for
How are you going
themselves
to do it
high
secretly?
places in all their cities, from watchtower to fortified city. They set up for themselves sacred pillars and wooden images on every
They
high
never
hill
learn, man.
and under every green tree. There they burned incense on all the high places, like the nations whom the Lord had carried away before them. And they did wicked things to provoke the Lord to anger.
I would love to see the process of how they went from a godly nation to an ungodly nation. I mean, we see it, but very briefly. I mean, I guess not briefly because we see it so many times, but we don't see the step by step. And by that I mean the slow individual decisions that lead to an entire nation falling into paganism. We see a few of them. We see the main decisions that have occurred, and then we see some actions, and then boom, it's done. They've fallen. But I would like to see the slow progress to see, because why do they keep falling into paganism so many times? I guess the same way why we sin every single day, right? We know it's wrong, yet we keep doing things. So maybe maybe the same way. But I feel like paganism is I guess it's not so far out there for them compared to us today, because everybody else did it, right? Everybody else, all the kingdoms around them did it. So, but why would you want to do it? What are you gaining from it? I don't know. Like, are you getting any? You can't get any satisfaction from it because there's no response. So I don't know. I don't know what the draw is.
For they served idols, of which the Lord had said to them,
You shall not do this thing.
Yet the Lord testified against Israel and against Judah by all of his prophets, every seer.
Turn from your evil ways and keep my commandments and my statutes, according to all the law which I commanded your fathers, and which I sent to you by my servants the prophets.
Nevertheless they would not hear, but stiffened their necks, like the necks of their fathers, who did not believe in the Lord their God. And they rejected his statutes, and his covenant that he had made with their fathers, and his testimonies which he had testified against them. They followed idols, became idolaters, and went after the nations who were all around them, concerning whom the Lord had charged them that they should not do like them. So they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, made for themselves a molded image and 2 calves, made a wooden image, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served Baal. And they caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire.
Okay, what is that? So they left all the commandments of the Lord their God, made for themselves a molded image and 2 calves, made a wooden image and worshipped all of the host of heaven and served Baal. What does that mean? Worshipped all the host of heaven. When I think host of heaven, I think angels. But so they're worshiping angels? So here's this other theory, right, that I've heard, that the fallen angels, like different mythologies, like Greek mythology and stuff, they took like the fall, like Zeus and all the gods are actually like fallen angels, and that's where the idea comes from. So the hosts of heaven, like the angels, is that what they're talking about? Like everybody else's gods are actually just the hosts of heaven, and they're worshiping them, and they shouldn't? I don't know. I mean, let's see what this Bible's got to say. Why does it say worship all the hosts of heaven? That's weird. 17:16. Yeah, it skips completely. Holy. I mean, maybe here, despite repeated warnings, Israel had persisted in every form of idolatry and licentious worship. And that's actually all it has to say on that matter. Let's look it up. Where is it? 17:16, hosts of heaven. Seventeen, 16. On the temptation to this worship of the heavenly bodies, the hosts of heaven, so the stars and the sun and the moon, because we know that sun worship and all that stuff is big in ancient civilizations, right? On the temptation to this worship of the heavenly bodies and its prohibition, that people did fall into this, okay. This worship had not been mentioned before, and it is nowhere else ascribed to the Israelites of the northern kingdom. Manasseh seems to have introduced it into Judah. Such knowledge as we have of the Western Asiatic religion seem to indicate that astral worship, strictly so-called, was a peculiarity of the Assyrio-Babylonian and Arabian systems only, and did not belong to the Syrian or the Phoenician or the Canaanite. It may be suspected that the present passage is somewhat rhetorical and assigns to the Israelites the worship of the hosts of heaven, simply because an astral character attached to Baal and Ashtoreth, who were associated in the religion of the Phoenicians with the sun and moon. On the other hand, it is just possible that the Assyrio-Babylonian star worship had been introduced into Israel under Menahem, Pekah, or Hoshea. Okay. Yeah, so hosts of heaven, meaning worshiping of this, something related to the worshiping of the sun, moon, and stars, either in the connection with Ashtoreth or Baal, or in actuality worshiping the sun, moon, and stars. Okay. So not angels and stuff like that. Okay. I mean, that's what their commentary is, and that's what I'm assuming. I guess we can look into, the next step would be to look into the original Greek host, what that was, host of heaven. I mean, we could probably do that. And then see what that directly translates to. And that would be in the Strongs, right? Yeah, they're breaking it down to the hosts of heaven, so that could be so many different things. But I need the entire, I need the entire phrase, the hosts of heaven. I thought the Strong's translated to Greek, but it's translating only to Hebrew, looks like. Yeah, see, this is why I thought hosts of heaven. Praise him, all his angels, all his hosts. All his hosts means angels. But I need the exact phrase, hosts of heaven. What is that translated from? The phrase hosts of heaven came into use because of the close connection between the realms of earth and heaven in ancient thought. The celestial bodies were thought to be organized in the same way as earthly military bodies. The sun, moon, and stars were regarded as the hosts of heaven in Genesis 2:1. The author of Psalm 33:6 stated that God created this host by his breath. God preserved the existence of the host of heaven in Isaiah 40:26. All right, and this is what we're talking about right now. Let's read this entire part. This looks like it's interesting. Another concept of the hosts of heaven is presented in passages similar to 1 Kings 22:19. So we're going to be getting into that. Oh, we already did that, 1 Kings. In which the prophet Micaiah stated that he saw the Lord sitting on his throne and all the hosts of heaven standing by him. Okay, see, that's what I'm thinking. Angels also could be. The people of Israel drew comparisons between their God and the gods of Canaan and Babylonia. Yahweh came to be understood as a king who presided over a heavenly council composed of angelic servants, sometimes called the sons of God. This concept is reflected in the first 2 chapters of Job. See, angels, council, heavenly, sons of God. Okay, see, so this could be taken in so many different ways, and that's why it's hard. Like, you have people who think the sons of God are fallen angels, and if they're these fallen angels, I mentioned that theory already, that these fallen angels could be the inspiration for, all these different pagan religions, like, the Greek gods and all that stuff. And all these and that's where polytheism could come from, because people are worshiping fallen angels instead of God, and that's where it came in what we just read, that they're worshiping the hosts of heaven, they're worshiping fallen angels, they're like polytheistic ways. Or it could mean sun, moon, and stars. So it's hard to pinpoint exactly what it means. We would need more context, and that would require a whole lot more research, and that'll take a whole lot more time. So we would have to do that in a separate video, looks like, if we want to get really in depth. So let's keep going for now. Let me back up a little bit.
Made a wooden image and worshipped all the host of heaven and served Baal. And they caused their sons and daughters to pass through the fire, practiced witchcraft and soothsaying, and sold themselves to do evil in the sight of the Lord, to provoke him to anger. Therefore the Lord was very angry with Israel, and removed them from his sight. There was none left, but the tribe of Judah alone. Also Judah
God just
did not
dismissed
keep
Israel.
the commandments of the Lord their God, but walked in the statutes of Israel which they made.
I mean, you saw how
And
many
the
times
Lord
they fallen.
rejected all the descendants of Israel, afflicted them, and delivered them into the hand of plunderers, until he had cast them from his sight.
Like, look how many
For he tore
kings we went through for
Israel
Israel.
from the house of David, and they made Jeroboam the son of Nebat king. Then Jeroboam drove Israel from following the Lord, and made them commit a great sin. For the children of Israel walked in all the sins of Jeroboam which he did. They did not depart from them until the Lord removed Israel out of his sight,
Oh, wait,
as he
this
had
is a
said by
flashback.
all his servants the
This
prophets.
is a recap.
So Israel was carried away from their own land to Assyria, as it is to this day. Then the king of Assyria brought people from Babylon, Cutha, Ava, Hamath, and from Sepharvaim, and placed them in the cities of Samaria instead of the children of Israel. And they took possession of Samaria and dwelt in its cities. And it was so, at the beginning of their dwelling there, that they did not fear the Lord. Therefore the Lord sent lions among them, which killed some of them. So they spoke to the king of Assyria,
The nations whom you have removed and placed in the cities of Samaria do not know the rituals of the God of the land. Therefore he has sent lions among them. And indeed, they are killing them because they do not know the rituals of the God of the land.
Then the king of Assyria commanded,
Send there one of the priests whom you brought from there. Let him go and dwell there, and let him teach them the rituals of the God of the land.
Then one of the priests whom they had carried away from Samaria came and dwelt in Bethel, and taught them how they should fear the Lord. However, every nation continued to make gods of its own, and put them in the shrines on the high places which the
I don't
Samaritans
understand
had
that.
made.
You're making
Every
the god.
nation in the
House
cities
of
where
the
they
god.
dwelt.
I don't
The
understand
men
the
of
mindset.
Babylon made Succoth-Benoth. The men of Cuth made Nergal. The men of Hamath made Ashima. And the Avites made Nibhaz and Tartak. And the Sepharvites burned their children in fire to Adramelech and Anamelech, the gods of Sepharvaim. So they feared the Lord, and from every class they appointed for themselves priests of the high places, who sacrificed for them in the shrines of the high places. They feared the Lord, yet
they fear the
served their
Lord?
own gods,
What?
according to the rituals of the nations from among whom they were carried away. To this
We're
day,
back in
they
Judges.
continue practicing the former rituals. They do not fear the Lord, nor do they follow their statutes or their ordinances, or the law and commandment which
confused.
the Lord had commanded the children of Jacob, whom he named Israel, with whom the Lord had made a covenant, and charged them,
You shall not fear other gods, nor bow down to them, nor serve them, nor sacrifice to them. But the Lord, who brought you up from the land of Egypt with great power and an outstretched arm, Him you shall fear, him you shall worship, and to him you shall offer sacrifice. And the statutes, the ordinances, the law, and the commandment which he wrote for you, you shall be careful to observe forever. You shall not fear other gods. And the covenant that I have made with you, you shall not forget, nor shall you fear other gods. But the Lord your God you shall fear, and he will deliver you from the hand of all your enemies.
However, they did not obey, but they followed their former rituals. So these nations feared the Lord, yet served their carved images.
That's crazy.
Also their children and their children's children have continued doing as their fathers did, even to this day.
Man. All right, let's see Judah.
Now it came to pass, in the 3rd year of Hoshea, the son of Elah, king of Israel, that Hezekiah, the son of Ahaz, king of Judah, began to reign. He was 25 years old when he became king, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Abi, the daughter of Zechariah, and he did what was right in the sight of the Lord, according to all that his father David had done. He removed the high places and broke the sacred pillars, cut down the wooden image, and broke in pieces the bronze
Finally,
serpent
the high
that
places
Moses
are gone.
had made. For until those days, the children of Israel burned
All right, so this guy's going hardcore. He cut down the wooden image and broke into pieces the bronze serpent that Moses had made. So anything that even remotely resembled in some type of image or idol, he got rid of. Okay, I like this guy.
incense to it, and called it Nehushtan. He trusted in the Lord God of Israel, so that after him was none like him among all the kings of Judah, nor who were before him. For he held fast to the Lord. He did not depart from following him, but
He looks like
kept
the type of
his
guy who would
commandments,
grab something by the
which
roots.
the Lord had commanded Moses. The Lord was with him. He prospered wherever he went. And he rebelled against the king of Assyria and did not serve him. He subdued the Philistines as far as Gaza and its territory, from watchtower to fortified city. Now it came to pass in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hoshea, the son of Elah, king of Israel, that Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against Samaria and besieged it. And at the end of 3 years, they took it. In the 6th year of Hezekiah, that is, the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Israel, Samaria was taken. Then the king of Assyria carried Israel away captive to Assyria, and put them in Halah, and by the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes, because they did not obey the voice of the Lord their God, but transgressed his covenant, and all that Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. And they would neither hear nor do them. And in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. Then Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria at Lachish.
I have done wrong. Turn away from me. Whatever you impose on me, I will pay.
And the king of Assyria assessed Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. So Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord, and in the treasuries of the king's house. At that time Hezekiah stripped the gold from the doors of the temple of the Lord, and from the pillars which Hezekiah king of Judah had overlaid, and gave it to the king of Assyria. Then the king of Assyria sent the Tartan, the Rabsaris, and the Rabshakeh from Lachish with a great army against Jerusalem to King Hezekiah.
What are those? 17.
And they went up.
Oh my gosh. Let me back it up a little bit.
300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. So Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's house.
Wow.
At that time, Hezekiah stripped the gold from the door.
The removal from the temple, the removal from the temple of immense amounts of gold, silver, and precious objects followed an earlier despoiling in the days of Amaziah. Tartan, Rabsaris, Rabshakeh, these titles suggest persons of a high station in Assyria. The accounts of the Assyrian kings suggest that they had mounted the largest armies known in the ancient Middle East. This huge army was stationed in the land of Judah. Let me go. And in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. Then Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria at Lachish, saying, I have done wrong. Turn away from me. Whatever you impose on me, I will pay. And the king of Assyria assessed Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver, 30 talents of gold. So Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's house. And that time, do you think he gave the furnishings? I don't know. And that time Hezekiah stripped the gold from the doors of the temple of the Lord, from the pillars which Hezekiah, king of Judah, had overlain, and gave it to the king of Assyria. But what command? Then the king of Assyria carried Israel away captive to Assyria, and put them in Halah, and by the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes or Medes, because they did not obey the voice of the Lord their God, but transgressed his covenant and all that Moses and the servants of the Lord had commanded, and they would neither hear nor do them. This is the king of Assyria we're talking about. The Lord was with him, Hezekiah, right? And he prospered wherever he went, and he rebelled against the king of Assyria and did not serve him. He subdued the Philistines as far as Gaza and its territory, from watchtower to fortified city. Now it came to pass in the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hoshea the son of Elah, king of Israel, that Shalmaneser, king of Assyria, came up against Samaria and besieged it. So came up against Samaria, and Hezekiah is king of Judah. Remember, God turned his back against Samaria and Israel. So, and at the end of the 3 years, they took it. In the 6th year of Hezekiah, that is, the 9th year of Hoshea, king of Israel, Samaria was taken. Then the king of Assyria carried Israel away captive to Assyria and put them in Halah and by the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes, because they did not obey the voice of the Lord their God. How? Does the king of Assyria worship God? What? 1811. Doesn't say anything. All right, let's look it up. It was Sennacherib, right? No, Shalmaneser, king of Assyria. That's what we want for right now. I mean, we're talking about Sennacherib later on. Shalmaneser, do we know? My Bible's not really saying. We can just look up Shalmaneser, Samaria. Yeah, this is tough. If you guys have any insight on this, I'm going to leave this for now. If you guys have any insight on this, let me know down in the comment section, because it's going to take up a lot of time. And I'll look at it after the fact, and maybe if I find anything, I'll put it in the next video. But yeah, this is the king of Assyria. That's what it seems like, the way it's worded. That he worships God. Then the king of Assyria carried Israel away captive to Assyria, and put them in Halah and by the Habor, the river of Gozan, and in the cities of the Medes, because they did not obey the voice of the Lord their God. Oh. God is using the king of Assyria. It's not that the king of Assyria is doing this because they didn't obey God. This is happening to them because they didn't obey God. Okay. That's what it is. God is just using the situation here. All right. It's not that the king of Assyria is doing it because they didn't listen to God. Why would he care? It's happening. It's just happening because of this. Okay.
In the 4th year of King Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of Hoshea, the son of Elah, he presented of King Hezekiah 300 talents of silver and 30. And they would neither hear of Hezekiah, that is, the 9th year, from watchtower to Hezekiah, which was the 7th year of, and by the Habor, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. Then Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria at Lachish.
I have done wrong. Turn away from me. Whatever you impose on me, I will.
Okay. And in the 14th year of King Hezekiah, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came up against all the fortified cities of Judah and took them. Then Hezekiah, king of Judah, sent to the king of Assyria at Lachish, saying, I have done wrong. Turn away from me. Whatever you impose on me, I will pay.
And the king of Assyria assessed Hezekiah, king of Judah, 300 talents of silver and 30 talents of gold. So Hezekiah gave him all the silver that was found in the house of the Lord and in the treasuries of the king's house. At that time Hezekiah stripped the gold from the doors of the temple of the Lord, and from the pillars which Hezekiah, king of Judah, had overlaid, and gave it to the king of Assyria. Then the king
I
of
have done
Assyria
wrong. He didn't do
sent the
wrong.
ti-
Really, he did wrong by the king of Assyria by not abiding by him, but he didn't do wrong because he didn't go against God.
gave it to the king of Assyria. Then the king of Assyria
And the
sent
fact that
the
you
Tartan,
Tore
the
up the temple to
Rabsaris,
do that.
and the Rabshakeh from Lachish with a great army against Jerusalem to King Hezekiah. And they went up and came to Jerusalem. When they had come up, they went and stood by the aqueduct from the upper pool, which was on the highway to the fuller's field. And when they had called to the king Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph the recorder came out to them. Then the Rabshakeh said to them,
Say now to Hezekiah, Thus says the great king, the king of Assyria. What confidence is this in which you trust? You speak of having plans and power for war, but they are mere words. And in whom do you trust that you rebel against me? Now look, you are trusting in the staff of this broken reed, Egypt, on which if a man leans, it will go into his hand and pierce it.
Ouch.
So is Pharaoh, king of Egypt, to all who trust in him. But if
trust
you
him,
say
can't
to me,
rely on
we
him.
trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah has taken away, and
Nope.
said to Judah and Jerusalem, You shall worship before this altar in Jerusalem?
So things are so messed. Okay, let me see if I can get reading this right first. But if you say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and whose altars Hezekiah has taken away and said to Judah and Jerusalem, you shall worship before this altar in Jerusalem? So other people think that the high places were used to worship God. See, the children of Israel have mixed up God and these false gods so much that the surrounding towns and territories don't know either. Well, how would they know if the children of Israel don't know themselves? This is crazy. Literally same thing that happened in Judges. Let's see if this Bible's got to say anything about that. 18:22. I doubt it. They don't have anything on this. Because Egypt depended upon the life-giving Nile with its reeds, the figure of a broken reed is most appropriate. Actually, Sennacherib's warning against the confidence in Egypt was well taken, the point having been made previously by Isaiah. And then it skips 22 and goes to 23. But yeah, that's what it's sounding like. But if you say to me, we trust in the Lord our God, is it not he whose high places and it's not his high places, and whose altars, it's not his altars. Hezekiah destroyed the pagan altars and the high places, and said to Judah and Jerusalem, you shall worship before this altar in Jerusalem. Isn't that the temple? That's where it's supposed to be.
Now therefore, I urge you, give a pledge to my master, the king of Assyria, and I will give you 2,000 horses.
So he's basically trying to turn away all the pagans in Judah. Okay, if there's any pagans left, come follow the king of Assyria.
If you are able on your part to put riders on them, how then will you repel one captain of the least of my master's servants, and put your trust in Egypt for chariots and horsemen? Have I now come up without the Lord against this place to destroy it? The Lord said to me, Go up against this land and destroy it.
So I guess that's why this section is titled Sennacherib boasts against the Lord.
Then Eliakim, the son of Hilkiah, Shebna, and Joah said to the Rabshakeh,
Please speak to your servants in Aramaic, for we understand it. And do not speak to us in Hebrew in the hearing of the people who are on the wall.
Has my master sent me to your master and to you to speak these words, and not to the men who sit on the wall, who will eat and drink their own waste with you?
Then the Rabshakeh stood and called out with a loud voice in Hebrew,
Hear the word of the great king, the king of Assyria. Thus says the king, Do not let Hezekiah deceive you, for he shall not be able to deliver you from his hand. Nor let Hezekiah make you trust in the Lord, saying, The Lord will surely deliver us. This city shall
This
not
is
be given into the
crazy.
hand of the king of Assyria. Do not listen to Hezekiah, for thus
This is
says the
messed
king
up.
of Assyria. Make peace with me by a present, and come out to me. And every one of you eat from his own vine, and every one from his own fig tree. And every one of you drink the waters of his own cistern, until I come and take you away to a land like your own land, a land of grain and new wine, a land of bread and vineyards, a land of olive groves and honey, that you may live and not die. But do not listen to Hezekiah, lest he persuade you, saying, The
I wanna see who
Lord will
listens to this
deliver
guy.
us. Has any of the gods of the nations at all delivered its land from the hand of the king of Assyria? Where are the gods of Hamath and Arpad? Where are the gods of Sepharvaim and Hena and Igva? Indeed, have they delivered Samaria from my hand? Who among all the gods of the lands have delivered their countries from my hand, that the Lord should deliver Jerusalem from my hand?
But the people held their peace.
I don't know. Go ask.
and answered him not a word.
Go ask Pharaoh.
For the king's commandment was, Do not answer him. Then
Yeah, don't even
Eliakim,
entertain.
the son of Hilkiah, who was over the household, Shebna the scribe, and Joah the son of Asaph the recorder, came to Hezekiah with their clothes torn, and told him the words of the Rabshakeh.
Yeah, that must have been an intense speech to reiterate or repeat. All right, that's going to be it for today. Tomorrow we're going to jump into chapter 19. Yeah, that was intense to end off on. I can't believe he doesn't worship God, so he doesn't have that reverence. But that's insane still. I want to see what happens. Who listens to this guy? What effect will he have on the people? I want to know. I guess we'll find out tomorrow. We're going to start chapter 19 tomorrow, and we'll go from there. So hope you guys enjoyed today's reading. I'll put the articles in the descriptions for you guys to check out, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Take care. Bye-bye.